Hey guys, welcome back to Something Wicked podcast. I'm with Rob, as always, the man, the myth, the legend, and we are joined by a legend in the art community. Well, I'd like to say he's a legend, Mr. Graham Humphreys. Hello, sir.
Hello.
I'll start off because I was actually watching something last night. I was watching about the video Nasties with my wife, and some of your artwork came up there.
Was that the documentary about the Video Nasty era?
Yes, yeah.
Is that
Your Evil Dad poster came up, your Evil Dad image came up a lot, and I mentioned this to you the other day on over message, but the first ever box set I ever brought was in my local town, and it was the Evil Dead one, the Anchor Bay one, was it, I think?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Because that's the reissue that Palace did, isn't it? I think the one you got on your desk there.
Yeah, and basically my question is to you, like, what did you get any kind of flack for drawing that back then, or what was the
No.
Because I noticed like there's a lot of things like people like, oh, Evil Dad, this big thing. Obviously, you've got the tree scene, and the tree diddles a lady, and I noticed like a lot of people, like, there was this bit where they were like burning a lot of the videos, and I kept seeing your art, and I was watching it with my wife, and I was like, oh, I'm speaking to him tomorrow. And I was like, look what they're doing to all of his lovely artwork, and did you
At the time, I think it was just slightly before the Video Nasty Act came in. Right. So Evil Dead was not subject to that at the time. And also, I think because it was clearly comedic in its presentation, and also very low budget as well, I don't think it was perceived as any kind of threat at all. And, I had a very limited theatrical run anyway. I think in London, the Prince Charles was the where it opened, right in heart of Leicester Square. I think they might have done a couple of previews at the Scala Cinema, which of course is where Palace Pictures were based at that time, up in King's Cross. So its accessibility was fairly limited, but of course it was released on video simultaneously, and so went into kind of rental shops, and I think it was possibly a bit of a slow burner in terms of how wide it went later, but at that time, I mean, I think the main thing was that the poster looked quite different to anything else that was on the Underground. For instance, I live in London, and the Underground was one of the most prime advertising arenas for film posters, and everything had to go past the advertising authority for the Underground, and they clearly saw nothing contentious in there at all. I mean, I think it was quite a cartoony poster anyway, so there was nothing to offend on anybody at all, and so there was no contention at that time, certainly in that first year, and I mean, for me, it was just a funny little job I did, which you thought would be around for about a few months, and then other posters go up, and that's it, gone. But amongst sort of friends I had at the time, they kind of loved the film, and I think that was very much the target age group at the time, kind of like, say, 20, 22, 21, 23, 24. We'd all just come out of the sort of punk era, and we're going to places like the Batcave, which was the pretty much where the sort of goth scene really formed or gelled, I guess. And the Evil Dead was very popular with this kind of post-punk audience, because it had a lot of sort of punk sensibilities, I guess, though, and I don't know if that was ever in Sam Raimi's mind, of course. I mean, probably there's a big cultural difference between what was going on in the US at the time and what was going on in the UK, but certainly just hit that happy little button at that time, and that's really where it found its audience, I believe, and that's what really propelled it here in the UK, that it sort of had this kind of underground status suddenly, though, which was kind of related very much to the music scene at the time, and so it kind of just spread its sort of little dirty tentacles through that process. So really, I had no flack at all over my work over it, and I've never had any issues, since from anybody at all. I mean, I've had no Christians turning up at the door with burning torches or anything. So yeah, nothing here at all, though. In fact, I think because it's such a colourful poster anyway, though, it clearly wasn't in sort of dark territory in terms of, you know, true transgression at all, though it was very much a sort of like a pop poster, and so I think it kind of escaped the notices of the sort of nefarious politics going on at the time. I mean, on its initial release anyway, it was fairly heavily cut. I mean, I think there were, I mean, I did see the list of cuts at Palace Pictures. They said the video cover, and so we just have this back from the BBFC. This is the list they've just given us. It's like, you know, thing after thing after thing. About 13 pieces in there which had to be removed. Mostly, it was just trimming the amount of time something went on. You know, like somebody was hit about 30 times. You know, they'd say, can you trim that down to 25 times? Just little things like that. So most of the visuals were kind of in there. I think the eye gouging might have been removed, and perhaps, funny enough, the kind of contentious rape scene, tree rape thing, I think was pretty much as, you know, as was always there. So it's kind of odd what kind of was considered bad taste at the time. I mean, you know, rape, of course, being such a contentious thing now, it seemed that kind of was less of an issue than a sort of some very tacky kind of effects for an eye gouging. So it was just odd how that kind of how already started to get some sort of little traction in the sort of thing. But by the time it had been passed after the video nasty kind of nonsense, I think they were able to start reinstating the missing pieces, and actually you look at it now and it just obviously seems so tame, but you know, in 1982 it was kind of a, you know, it was kind of full on.
Yeah, definitely, because like I've saying to Rob before, I remember when I found it in this local shop, you know, the box set. I begged my mum to get it. Like, my mum was kind of the person who got me into horror films, and it was one of those things when, obviously, again, like you were saying, really in that film the worst thing is the tree rape. But even Sam Raimi said, yeah, even for me that's a bit much kind of thing in a lot of interviews I've watched through. And my mum was like, are you sure you want to watch it? And I remember going, the whole point, I was like, yeah, because I own a tattoo studio, that's where we are at the moment. I remember when I was younger, I wanted to be a tattooist. I remember looking at the colours thinking, yeah, the art, even if I don't like the film, I want it just for the artwork, because that looked beautiful to me. And then, yeah, I went home, and obviously I'm a fan of Evil Dead now, but 12-year-old me was not prepared for the tree bit.
Were you 20 years old at the time you did this Evil Dead poster?
I was 22 in 1982. I can remember my age easily because I was born in 1960, so I can calculate it very, very simply.
I mean, there must have been, was there like a huge amount of pressure on you? Because obviously a very young age, I mean, obviously maybe at the time not everyone was aware that was involved in the project, how big the film would be. Obviously now with, you know, Evil Dead still making a massive impact on every generation it's come across in horror. How did you feel at 22 years old creating something like this? Because like you say, the use of colour, I suppose in a way, when people look at it, it's for its colour as well as obviously everything else involved. But like when I look at it, I think of, you know, what came before it. And there was a lot of work by Bob Peake and things like that that always struck my mind as, you know, wonderful artwork. But you know, so how did you feel at 22 coming up with this project?
No, I didn't feel pressure at all because as I mentioned earlier on, I think it was a film which we assumed would it was like a fun film that would get released, you know, a sort of a pastiche of a B movie, if you like, almost. And certainly for my reference, in terms of visuals, I was looking at, you know, posters from the 1950s, very sort of lurid drive-in type stuff, and that's really my kind of main source for the imagery, if you like. And because, you know, at 22, I wasn't that experienced, and I sort of knew my limitations, so it's quite a simple poster really, and I was just doing what I knew I could get away with at the time, posters, and you know, it's very important to mark this as being different to that because it was a different type of horror film. And we'd gone through, you know, the whole Exorcist thing, and you know, sort of The Omen and stuff like that, and you know, they were going for a very kind of classy, kind of almost old Hollywood look, if you like, and you know, this wasn't adult at all. It was like just, you know, quite juvenile in many ways, and it just seemed appropriate that it should have fairly juvenile colours as well. and I think that, I mean, I remember speaking to somebody a few years after I'd painted the poster, and he said that you know, it's odd that you seem to have understood what it was like living through the 60s. And I was thinking, well, you know, I was about, and you know, I was just a kid. But he was saying that he was older than me. He's saying that in the 60s, it was when LSD, you know, first started, you know, making its way across the Atlantic to the UK, and he was clearly one of the early takers. And he said he remembers taking pure LSD, and he said those were the colours that he kept seeing when he was taking LSD. Well, I had no idea, you know, I didn't realise I was creating some sort of acid trip, but you know, it's just I didn't want to use blue. That's the only thing in my head. I thought, I'm not going to use blue because every horror film uses blue, and I'm not going to do that. And you know, you know, so the moon will be purple, and the faces will be green, and that's all I remember thinking at the time.
Yeah,
no drugs involved.
I was saying to Rob just before we started, your uses of like reds and oranges and greens, it's just masterful in a way. Like I just love how you use them because they contrast so well together. And to be honest with you, I didn't actually notice the lack of blue until you just said that you didn't use any, and yeah, it works really well.
Reading a review of Exorcist Part 3, The Heretic, and I know that the colour palettes in that were with a lot. There was a lot of orange and yellow hues, and there was some psychology behind that. I was told by the within the feature that the cinematographer had identified those as being particularly uncomfortable colours because you have the absence of the sky and nature. You have no blues or greens, and oranges are supposed to be disconcerting for that reason. And so I've always kind of loved orange for that reason. But I do remember reading this fantastic book, Against Nature, by Heisman. I don't know if you've read this book. It's a sort of odd, kind of eccentric French novel about this eccentric who lives alone, having lived life to the full, experienced everything there is to experience in life, and then at this later point, when he's aging, decides he needs to just live completely against everything that he indulged in and enjoyed, actually living against nature, basically, which is you know, simple as living by night instead of day, by rather than eating through the mouth, using suppositories. And he has a huge conservatory, which he fills not with exotic flowers and palms and things, but with kind of weird succulents that look like diseases. And but he in one of the chapters, he is picking his color schemes for his existence, which is going to be just by candlelight, and picking colors that worked with candlelight, and actually were for most people unpleasant to look at. And he had picked a particular for his living room, this particular orange and a particular dark blue. And I was quite fascinated by the thought processes behind his color theories, and so I guess that might have been part of where I started coming from in terms of colors as well, just playing against expectation largely. Although, you know, in terms of horror, I think green always is a good signal, because it's you know, you think of zombies and Frankenstein's monster, you know, everybody just pictures these greens. And actually, of course, you know, you can see behind me one of the when I was a kid, the Aurora monster models were stocking up on the shelves in sort of local toy shops and things. And in fact, actually, this is the very first one that I bought, and you can see how this would have influenced my color options. I mean, that's very Evil Dead, isn't it? Anyway,
yeah.
Just that
it's
purple
very
and
powerful,
green,
isn't it? So it speaks out.
And it kind of always stays with me. So I guess that's really where you know, whatever the question was to start with, that's really where all the origin of the color stuff comes from.
Well, it's interesting because what Chad said to you at the beginning about the first time you ever encountered like the Evil Dead. Well, you know, the artwork which we see here on the Anchor Bay trilogy box. The one I remember now was a bit different colour altogether, was Eric the Viking. That was a big VHS. I was a big fan of the. I mean, I was lucky enough to be. I'm old enough to remember the VHS era quite well, and my dad, being a massive historical fan of like Excalibur and things like that, you know, Eric the Viking was something we welcomed into our house quite quickly. And I remember seeing the video cover for it, but like I said, that has got a lot of use of blue, I suppose, with the you know, at the bottom. But obviously, it's not a horror film, so it can be excused that way. But I remember looking at that cover and just being focused on it, and that was the beauty of the VHS, I thought, because again, another film now, I'm not too sure, well, this here, can you see that?
Hunter's Blood.
Hunter's Blood, yeah. Now this is actually, this is something I had made by my friend, because it's sadly not out on Blu-ray yet, and only on DVD, but that's quite hard to get hold of as well. But my friend made it for me for when the actual Blu-ray, hopefully one day, gets released. But again, the use of colour.
Yeah. Well, it is slated for release, but I think like many Blu-ray releases right now, there are delays in terms of, I think the pandemic's had some impact, of course, and in terms of it's more the extras that are going to be loading up the release. And I mean, I know that all the covers I've done over the last year or so have been, the release has been delayed, and that just seems to be right across the board. And
that's for Hunter's Blood, is it?
Sorry?
That's for Hunter's Blood. That's
well, that's just one of the many that it's slated. There's no date on it yet, though, but I know that was, and I think they were intending, I can't say who, but they were intending to release it last year, and it just got put back. So so it will see the light of day. I think I only know this because I was approached to see if I had the original artwork still, which I actually bizarrely do, you know, in that way where you might have a sort of a flip cover. I think that was the consideration. But I do remember, I think Palace gave it a fairly unwarranted release, and I think it was just literally because of that weird little connection to I think it had Joey Travolta in it, though.
Did.
I think they thought I think they were going to sell it on the name Travolta, which is a bit of a cheat, really, because
all I remember was, I mean, I saw that film far too young. I remember watching it, and my dad was with me, and he was thinking, "Why am I showing you this?" Because by this point, I'd not seen Deliverance, and that's a film I would very much connect it to.
The cover gives you big Deliverance vibes.
Yeah, it's like an in the woods sort of chase kind of, you know, horror movie about, you know, it's actually, you know, like you know, rednecks, really.
Okay.
Things like that, and but I remember, like, even years after, you know, when I sort of, you know, fell out of watching movies for a while and discovered music, I never forgot Hunter's Blood, the experience of watching a film like that. But it was, like I say, the covers, the VHS covers, even on some films that, you know, weren't actually good, the covers would sell you it alone, so you would always pick it off the shelf. And that's something, you know, I think that we don't get in this era. We don't get enough. I think when you see films in, you know, the local supermarket or HMV, I think the covers to these days, I mean, not Arrow, of course, Arrow, 88, 101 films, they still bring out the great stuff, you know, reversible artwork and new artwork and things like that. But today's cover artwork I find is very bland.
Yeah.
And people still buy it, which is good, and DVD still sells well. But I think if they actually put more effort into getting people like yourself to be more involved, I'm sure, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure you are involved in lots of ways, but I believe that, you know, some marketing needs to change if they want to, because I think there's more money to be made and more people can express themselves by watching films more by better artwork.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head there, money. It's the margins for releases are quite narrow nowadays. That's mostly because of Amazon, to be quite honest. But you know, they demand that everything's quite a low price, and so what gets spent on a cover has shrunk, you know, in terms of a budget. So it's actually very hard to attract artists to the work. You know, you have to accept if you're doing a Blu-ray cover, largely it's going to be you know, not that great financially. So actually the more work you put into it, the less you're going to earn because of the time it takes. So there is a sort of balance there. So it's not that perhaps the clients don't want to commission, sort of interesting art. It's just literally, it's not actually possible always within the budget, unless they have something which they think is going to do particularly well and ship a lot of units, in which case they might spend a bit more. And that happens fairly regularly as well, though. So it's not always really the distributor's fault as such. It's just actually that's just a market driven thing, unfortunately. I mean, back in the days of VHS, I mean, they would sell thousands and thousands of units, and you could get your money back on those, whereas now it's a little bit more precarious, I think, though. But it's as you say, people are commissioning the work, so and I'm still doing it. Thing is, if it's a good title anyway, and I will do it because it's something I want to do. So even though the money may not be so great, the fact is it's a chance to create a really nice piece of artwork, which I know that I can then cash in on at a later point, if you like, by number one, selling the artwork itself, the actual painting, and also doing, with permission from the client, selling prints at conventions as well. So if it's a good title, I know that there's a longevity to that, which means that I can make up what I would say is a sort of a less than professional fee, shall we say, at the start, but then you can recoup the costs later. So it's all down to the title, really.
I think we are very lucky to have, we're very lucky to have the likes of Arrow Video, Scream Factory in America, which we can get through importing. And because, like I say, now the thirst for horror is more than ever, than I remember anyway. I mean, because I think, because people are much more appreciating the classics and the artwork as well, which I think is why, Arrow are so special in many ways. Because obviously in your book, there's a lot of artwork which has been in the book that was used in their releases.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, Second Sight Films as well are commissioning, yes, and fabulous films. Smaller outfit, but I've been doing a lot of work with them recently, and there's some stuff I did last year, which as I've mentioned before, things have been delayed. So there's a couple of pieces I was really keen to see already out there, but they I can't actually show the work to anybody because it's confidential still. So it's very frustrating when you've done something. You want people to see, and you have to wait a year or so before you can actually show it at all. In fact, a lot of work I've been doing over the last few months may not see the light of day until some point next year, maybe the middle of next year or later on in the year as well, though. So it's all this stuff is accumulating, which nobody's seen yet, but it will be out there eventually, though. One of the other formats, of course, is vinyl soundtrack covers, and so I've been doing a number of those over the years, more recently, and I'm doing a number right now. But of course, we were told that horror was going to be dead, and we were told that DVD, Blu-ray was dead, and of course vinyl is supposed to be dead, but they just can't produce enough of it. Everybody's been told that the waiting time for vinyl release is something like about 9 months now, because simply there isn't enough vinyl being manufactured, the people pressing it to actually fill the market need at the moment.
It's good to know that there's still physical media still in demand, then, isn't it? So it's special to hear that.
Again, we've got a long lines of your artwork. The first ever vinyl I brought was actually something that you did the art for, and it's a film that not a lot of people speak about, but I feel like it needs the love. It's The Zero Boys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that film, not as much as I love Babe 2 Pig in the City, because Rob knows how much I love that film. But yeah, The Zero Boys has always got like a special place in my heart. I remember seeing your artwork, and I think it was in HMV. And yeah, I was just like, again, because at the time I was with my wife, and I was like, I'm pretty sure Graham Humphreys done that. And she was like, who's that? And I was like, sacrilege, my dear wife. And then I explained to her about, again, the story about me finding the Evil Dead and stuff like that, and I brought it and I've still got it. And now Zero Boys is one of my favourite soundtracks of all time as well.
Interesting. Well, I hadn't seen the film until I actually did the work on it, and that's quite often the case anyway, that you don't. I mean, I'm often unaware of a film existing until the point where I actually get to work on something. And for instance, you know, you talked about Hunter's Blood earlier on. I think I saw the film once on a sort of a press copy of VHS, and had to give back the copy. I've not seen it since. And the only thing I ever remember from it is the scene with the antlers, which and actually on that cover, that's my hands. I photographed my hands. I don't know what I was holding, probably a pair of toilet rolls or something, just for reference for the hands. Like,
everyone watching, if you didn't see it.
And you said this film's quite hard to get hold of as well, to watch.
Well, there is a French release many years ago, which was actually going for quite a decent price on eBay, but no one I think ever bought it because it looked like the front cover, there was a woman on it. I mean, there is one or two ladies in the movie, but they were wearing clothes that were basically modern day. So it looked, you know, they were trying to obviously manipulate the consumer, thinking it was a more modern horror film, where really it's a film from the 80s. So, but it soon quickly went obscure. But no, I think it's a film that will, like I said, I mean, I'm definitely one person when Arrow Video will, you know, announce a movie that they're releasing. I'll be the first to put my hand up and say I've never heard of that film, because some films come out. You know, there's so many horror films out there that are so deep, you know, in the dungeons, and then they get unearthed to be released and be remastered. You know, there's so many films to be seen still because they were so vastly made back then.
Well, I think also it's not dissimilar, I don't think, to the way theatrical releases used to happen. That if a distributor wanted to pick up a film and get it out there, it was quite often they'd have to make some sort of deal whereby the owners would say, well, if you put this out, you have to take this film and also put this out as well. So quite often they'd be releasing films that perhaps, you know, they wouldn't have chosen to have done otherwise, but the obligation was within a contract. If you want this film, you have to have this one as well, or maybe a whole slew of them. So for instance, you know, if you pick up one particular archived film, some you know, I guess Zero Boys would be one example of that. It's very possible that perhaps within that picking up that one, then you had also a library from that director as well, which came as part of a package. So you wouldn't just be buying one film to release, you'd actually be buying a whole package of films to release. And I think that's, you know, fairly standard. And so that's why you get some odd obscure releases which perhaps, you know, you wouldn't think would ever have any commercial place. But you know, it was just, well, that's kind of what has to be done, because in order to release this film, you release this one as well. So you know, that's not unusual, I don't think. But you know, that's why you'd see so many obscure titles. I mean, I literally do not know the films for which I've done covers for. I've actually, there have been films I've not even seen at all where I've done covers for them. So yes, it's quite odd how that works sometimes.
Well, like Chad, I never had heard of the Zero Boys until I saw the vinyl cover. So when I saw that, it straight away piqued my interest, and I like that, because you know, it's always great to discover something new, not from like anything that's been released now, but something from the past. It's always good to sort of look back and go, oh, I mean, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago I discovered William Friedkin's Sorcerer, a film I never knew existed, and then watched it and thought, where's that film been all my life? And I did miss things like that. So it's important really when they do release movies I've never heard of, for everyone, so then they can go and watch it, and you know, hopefully a lot of people take more from it than they don't.
My favourite film of 2017 or 2018 was The Barn, and obviously you did the artwork. I really enjoyed that film. Have you seen The Barn?
I've not seen it.
Yeah, and that again, that reminds me a lot of your posters where you use like the oranges and stuff like that inside that. I thought that's I brought that poster from America. It took ages to get here. Yeah, I really love that poster a lot. It's on my wall at home as well. And they're actually making a second one. Are you doing the artwork for the second one, the second Barn film?
I have been approached. Nothing's happened on it yet though. Okay. But no, that was an odd one as well, because that came about because I went to a screening at a small sort of film club with some friends run, and they'd seen the film and really liked it and thought it'd be just good fun to have. And I think we I think we had a message recorded from the director as well, which we were able to show before the film. I think, he wanted, I believe, just some video footage of the audience just talking about the film afterwards, which could then put into some sort of a special edition. And I said my sort of 5 pennies worth, and I was saying how much I enjoyed the film, and I said that quite casually, well, it's one of those films that you'd love to do a cover for, though. And I said that if the director is up for it, I'm up for it, though. So that's how that job came about. It's one of the busiest covers I've ever done, I think, though. Literally everything is in it, everybody's in it. And actually, when I put the original composition together, I thought this is way too busy. And when it went to be when the sketches were being approved, suddenly it's like, well, this is great. Can you actually get 2 more people in there as well? So people are getting smaller and smaller and fitting these little heads in between bits and pieces. So yes, it was it's a crowd on a poster.
It's a very cool poster. I really like it. Like you said, there's a lot to look at with the poster, but I think you smashed it. Which brings me to my next question, Graham. Do you have a poster that you've done that you think's your best work, or you consider like your magnum opus kind of?
Well, like a lot of artists, I don't particularly have favourites or put a lot of value on individual pieces. It's mostly all my work's commercial at the end of the day, and you're fulfilling a brief. So quite often, the images you're using are not always necessarily your choice of images, and it's very much shaped by what the client considers important for the job. And when you present your ideas, they will often shave away the things that you're actually most keen on yourself. So you can't always choose the way a job's going to look. Obviously, it's my job to try and make it as decent as possible given the parameters. But yeah, there are a few jobs which I've done in the past, and I thought, this is kind of pretty much I've been able to control what's going on here. And some of those have not been widely they're not been official jobs, if you like. There might have been some private commissions. So things like I think as early last year, I did a piece for Dawn of the Dead, which was a private commission, but I think it's probably one of the pieces I identify as being something that worked for me, and I think it's clearly worked for other people as well, though. And everything about it, the colour choices and the way the imagery is put together, it's quite a complex piece, but I feel that it actually for me, it kind of captures the film in a sort of way which is not been seen before, shall we say. I mean, for me, it's very important if you're revisiting classic films that you bring something new that hasn't been seen before to the job. I mean, that's really, again, where I have to, it's the challenge that I have to meet, is to do something new each time. And when I'm watching a film, I'm always looking for little odd things which are not maybe key, but they're kind of there somehow. And it's interesting how kind of you can just bring stuff to the front which has actually never really been considered before, and suddenly you created a whole new way of looking at something. And it helps me look at reappraise films as well, actually looking for unusual and odd detail which might be just background, but then suddenly you bring it to the front and it just adds a new texture to everything.
Are there certain sort of, because with obviously new artwork coming out daily on physical releases, is there any particular artist, illustrator that takes your fancy these days, who's sort of, you've seen his work and gone, that's really interesting?
The next generation.
Yeah, the next generation of you, really.
Well, I find it's kind of not useful to make judgments about anybody else's work, and I know you're not asking for judgments, but it's for me, I kind of focus on what I do and my own approach. I do see other work, of course I do, but I think somebody like myself, any of those other artists, you know the way you approach something, and I think it's very important to maintain your own kind of personality within that work. And so I see other work, of course, which is it's excellent stuff, but I know at the same time, well, that's not what I would have done with that particular job. Of course, I don't know what limitations they were given to start with, the way they were briefed, or perhaps if it's something they've had full reign over, why they might have chosen those particular approaches. But what is good is that there is a lot of artwork out there, and it is being commissioned, and people are getting paid for it. Hopefully, professional rates, and so I'm actually just happy that actually there is all that stuff going on, and I don't. There's no way I'd want to be doing every job myself. I'm not. People say, "Oh, wish they get Graham to do this." I think, well, actually, I can't do everything. Also, I shouldn't either, because I think the variety is really important, and I think that makes it more stimulating as well. So there is a certain amount of stimulation when you see other people's work, because I also, you kind of see benchmarks, if you like, though, and it's, if you see something you think is looking really good, what you want to do is actually think, well, okay, that's the mark now. I have to try to attain or better, and I think we all drive each other in that kind of way. So it's good to have the, I wouldn't say it's competition, but in a way it is, and I think it's important for every artist to be aware of what's out there, but really not be distracted by it, because you have to do your own individual thing, because if you don't, then all you're going to be doing is emulating somebody else. And well, then why would they employ you when they can employ that person? So you have to have something which is uniquely yours. So for that reason, I don't really, I find it's not useful to focus on other people's work that much, if that makes sense. Which is not actually disparaging. It's not meant to be disparaging. It's just that for my own self, in the work I do, I have to just focus.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and it's quite nice actually that now at the conventions, Comic Cons, Horicons, that you get to meet illustrators.
Yeah.
I think that's really nice. So obviously you've been to Sheffield Horicon, haven't you, many times?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I actually came over and spoke to you once. You probably don't remember, I'm the sheepish guy. I was holding my Anchor Bay release. I was like, look, I know you. I didn't, obviously, but I was like, I've got this. You probably get that a lot though, but obviously not only as handsome as me. But
it's just nice to have the one-to-one, I think, with the person who created, like I say, because for me, and I'm sure Chad and many others, the artwork is where it starts.
Yeah.
It's the first thing you see before you see the film. It's what piques your interest. So when you get to meet your illustrator, the illustrator of a piece of art that you've admired over the years, and you get it signed and get it on the wall framed up, it means a lot more, I think. So hopefully we get to see more of these conventions in the future.
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's really important to get that face-to-face feedback as well, because you learn very quickly what which pieces you've done which are working successfully, I guess, though, that you learn what your own strengths are by getting that feedback. People say, I particularly like this piece, and actually enough people say that, then you think, well, okay, there's something about this piece of work which actually is better than this piece of work which you've done, and you have to try and identify what it is that actually appeals to those people. And quite often I find myself just throwing everything at something. There's going to be something in there which will appeal, and for me, probably at this moment in time, it's difficult to keep stuff restrained, to keep stuff simple. That there have been pieces I've created in the past which have been extremely simple, but that's been why they've been effective. For instance, I've had a few people over the last, for some reason, only the last 5 years or so, have referred back to the VHS cover I did for a film called The Stuff, which is really simple. It's just a big green face, this kind of pink goo coming out of it, but it's not a complex image by any stretch. It's not even a character in the film. In fact, I think I used my own face as reference for it, and just made it green, because green always works. But it's interesting that I think there's a bit of expectation that if you created a number of complex images, people seem to think that's your thing, and they kind of come to expect that. And actually, all you're trying to do is actually saying, no, I don't want to put another face in there. Please, no more faces. Please, can I just not have to have that thing in there? But people expect you're just going to cram stuff in, and sometimes now I just do it automatically without thinking, just on the presumption that actually that's what's expected. So therefore, that's what I will do. So it's a kind of battle I have with myself, really, that you try to restrain what you do, but at the same time, there's an expectation that you're going to deliver something quite complex. And sometimes it's kind of needed, I think, but mostly it's not really. And I'm also I'm very aware of indulgence as well, though, that I think it's very important that artists don't indulge themselves. And, the temptation is there, fortunately, because of, commercial constraints. As I said earlier on, that, you have a certain amount of money, a budget for a job, and that will give you, you can do 2 or 3 days on that job. Then after that, you're no longer earning money. If you like, if you set yourself a daily rate, you know what your minimum requirements are to pay for your rent or mortgage or whatever, and your tax and everything else. All these things you have to consider. You have a sort of minimum that you can earn in a day as a sort of an average, whereby if you're getting less than that, then actually you're not going to be able to survive at all. So it's not to do with greed. You want a lot of money. It's to do with the fact this is the bottom line. If I'm earning less than that, then actually I'm not earning at all. So I know for myself, if a budget is such, then I can only give that 2 days maximum. Otherwise, I'm not earning anymore. So that actually has an impact on the work you do as well. That's a very complex job. If a client expects a complex job, I know that that's going to take me 4 or 5 days. And I have to say that actually this is how long it will take. And literally, this is what you will have to pay for me to be able to earn a living if I'm going to do this at all. And, once you present this, then, there's an understanding then with the client about what's achievable and, how they can rein in their own expectations as well. So it's kind of a constant battle. It's one I've been having for 40 years. So it's one I'm very familiar with.
It's very interesting hearing those process, because obviously as fans we just see the artwork and that's it. So to hear how what goes on behind the scenes is actually quite interesting, because it's not something we would ever hear really.
No.
We just want basically to get the physical release and then hold it close.
Yeah, well, as I say, a job is often shaped by the client's needs rather than the artist's vision, if you like. So, but yes, in terms of I was talking about indulgence. I think there are artists who like to, work on something and just carry on working on something because they're enjoying it and they want to get more in there and do more. And for me, there's a cut-off point when something, as soon as the painted image is saying what it needs to say, then you just stop completely. You don't do it anymore, because it's possible to overwork stuff and you kind of lose the freshness. But also, as I say, if it's working, any more work is just an indulgence, and you should not be actually doing that at all, because it's not good for the client, it's not good for you, and it's not good for the customers either at the end of the day. And also you're losing money as well. Just as a bottom line thing, you're no longer actually doing a professional job. I think for me, being professional is delivering something with a budget, on budget, and also which then allows me to be able to be a professional, if you like. So for me, it's important to, when I'm working with a client, to impart, what's achievable and what isn't, though, and it's an eternal battle. But having said that, as I mentioned earlier on, if a job is, if it's something you really want to do, then that's something you accept. That's actually, you think, well, okay, I should only do 2 days on this, but actually I'm going to do 4 days because I think there will be a better job at the end of the day. And actually, I know that the client will be pleased, that the customers will be pleased, and it will have some longevity after that. That I will get that money back because I'll sell prints or the artwork or whatever. So it's something you have to weigh up in your mind when you get a job.
This sadly brings us to the end now of this, Graham. It's been lovely speaking to you. For the last bit, though, just kind of asking, have you got anything on the horizon that you want anyone to know about that would listen and watch this? Have you got any conventions coming up, or is there any artwork you want people to look out for?
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, as I said, everything I do is kind of confidential until it's actually out there. So everything I've been doing the last couple of months or so it's all kind of actually 6 months. Most of it's kind of secrets until that such a point. I mean, there are some Blu-ray covers. There are some alternative posters ahead, which I think will be of interest, and a lot of LP soundtrack stuff, which I think will be of interest to people as well. Though, I mean, certainly I'm enjoying doing it because at the end of the day, I'm a big fanboy myself anyway. Though, so I can recognise what's going to excite people because I get excited about things as well. So, and that's also why the conventions are great as well, because you pick up on other people's excitement, the projects they're excited about, and that's kind of where you can re-inspire yourself in many ways. But yes, convention wise, I'm doing the London Film and Comic Con, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, and then I'll be doing I'll be going to the Dark Fest, but I'm just going as a punter because I'm a fanboy, as I said. Though I'm not actually selling anything there, though, other than my tales, tales of woe, probably. But then there's a Sheffield Horicon coming up next May, all being well. And I think before that, there's a smaller one up in Scarborough, which is a science fiction weighted event. But I think they're looking to ramp up the horror element, though. So I'll be there to hold the horror flag as such. So
one of us.
Hopefully, all being well, we get to meet you at Sheffield Horicon. So we're both hopefully.
Yeah, we'll both come to that. Hopefully, we'll come out.
It's always a good one, and they have great guests, and the organisers are really very nice to deal with, and all the people that come along, the delegates, if we like, have always been incredibly charming, and I always look forward to chatting to people. And I always end up with a really sore throat at the end of the because I've just been chatting constantly. But that's good though.
Definitely. So yeah, just like a massive thank you for coming on. We've both been very excited to speak to you. Like I said, we're both fans of yours. And yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully we can get you on again.
It's funny seeing you on that table there because I feel like a barman and you're waiting for your drinks. A few pints.
It's a bar sort of feel to it.
Yeah, Tatting Studios bar, same thing. So yes, thank you so much for coming on. It means a lot to us, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon and see you.
Hope so as well. It's been great chatting. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you. Take care.
Cheers.
A big thank you to Graham Humphreys. That was amazing. Really enjoyed that. We both fangirled a little, but that's fine. Check out everything that Graham's doing. You can find him on Instagram. Buy his book. That'll be pretty cool. Pick something up. Pick some art up as well. That's always a good thing to do. Support your local artists.
Absolutely.
And then next episode we will have. Do you want to explain who we'll have, Rob?
We're going to have a man called Dave Wayne. Now, Dave Wayne is he owns a DVD rental shop. It was a video rental shop many years ago, but now it's a DVD, Blu-ray, maybe some 4K. I'm not too sure. But
all around just goodness.
Yeah, he has. He's one of a couple of people who still do this in the UK, and he's based in Port Sunlight in the Wirral. So if you are local in the Merseyside area, the Wirral area, please go and visit.
What's the Snips videos?
Snips videos.
Yeah, find him on Instagram. He's always posting stuff up on there, which is pretty cool.
But Chad and I recently went to the store, to the shop, and went to go and see it and have a look around, geek out, and it was great fun.
You can see, we took some videos and pictures, and you can check them out on our Instagram.
So we're going to share them on the socials a bit more upcoming with the podcast coming up, but we'll let you know more soon. But that will be our next podcast, so please keep checking in, subscribing, all the good stuff.
Man. Yeah, thanks guys, and we'll see you next time.